Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope everyone is safe and taking care. My name is Pranali Raut from Lindbergh, Massey, India, and I would like to extend a warm welcome to all of you at the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit. Asia's Broadcasting and Infotainment Show, or A.B.I.S, comprises of the Broadcast India Show, the SCAT India Trade Show, and the Content India Show. At the A.B.I.S Knowledge Summit, we look forward to bringing you engaging panel discussions, interesting fireside chats, and interactive product demos over the next 3 days. Welcome back, and let's get right to it and introduce our first session for the day. Remote Workflow Made Easy for Creative Teams by James, Head of Sales Asia at Studio Network Solutions. With more than 3 decades of experience in the media industry, James brings a unique perspective to every project he is involved in. Creating content in the early 90s using various analog formats, he has witnessed firsthand the challenges of digitizing our entertainment. James brings the breadth of his knowledge to every SNS customer so they can focus on creating. Before I hand over to James, just one note to all our attendees. We will be having a Q&A session at the end of this. So please feel free to drop in your questions in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screens. James, I'm going to hand over the screen to you.
Hi, everyone. Pranali, you might want to enable screen sharing for me. Thank you. Right. Thank you, Pranali, for the kind introduction. And good afternoon, everybody. And thank you for taking the time out of a busy day to join us today. I hope everyone is staying safe and taking care of itself. Here's a quick rundown of what we are covering today. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we will start with a quick introduction of Studio Network Solutions. Then we'll talk about exciting new announcements for Broadcast India. Next, we'll go into more details about our products. And finally, we shall hear what some of our customers have to say about our solutions. We'll end off with a Q&A session at the end. So please feel free to type in your questions as we go through the session into the chat box so we can get to them at the end. Right, let's get started. Studio Network Solutions started as a recording studio in St. Louis, Missouri. We needed a reliable network storage for our multi-room recording and mastering studio, but we could not find a system on the market. So what do? We had to go and build our own. Then we went to a little show called NAB back in 1998. Technicolor came around, saw what we had to offer, and said they needed a POC. So we went to their facility in New York, proved that the system worked, and as they say, the rest is history. Here are some key points about SNS. We have been in business for 23 years, and we are the oldest storage vendor that are still owned by the original owners. Our team members come from creative and engineering backgrounds. We have musicians, sound engineers, video editors, and VFX artists on our team. I myself used to be a sound and video editor and also a sound designer. We have a long history of developing groundbreaking products for media workflows, and that gave us unmatched expertise in the industry. We are very proud to enable creative organizations in over 70 countries around the world. And importantly, we have fantastic tech support. We have a 99% customer satisfaction rating. The thing that sets us apart from others are our EVO OS, our software suites, and our hardware architecture. They are purposely built for media workflow. Our custom EVO OS is in continuous development by SNS for more than a decade, and it is in use 24/7 on thousands of EVO systems all around the world. Our OS, our design, our apps, our work, all done by real computer scientists, some with PhDs, and we've invested hundreds of thousands of hours on the EVO OS. That gives us the ability to fully support the whole system down to the kernel and make all low-level OS changes as necessary. Our hardware provides high-performance online shared storage. Our software includes media asset management, automation, API, remote editing tools, all to enable the workflow that suits you best. And we also provide professional services for pre-sales engineering and consultation, remote commissioning, and individual or group training. Most importantly, we validate our hardware and software in our real-world test lab. We have more than 20 workstations running various hardware and software platforms, testing EVO's stability and performance 24/7. EVO is different things to different users. For some, it's the ability to share and collaborate on very high resolution projects. For others, it's the quick and simple way to manage hundreds of thousands of video files and archive. Yet others love it for the built-in automation tools that integrate with cloud and remote workflow. At the end of the day, EVO is the complete workforce solution for post-production, broadcast, and VFX teams. And we enable that by including all our software for free in unlimited fashion with no per-seat licensing. EVO is everywhere where content is produced, whether it's film, video, VFX, audio and music productions, sports, education, religious organization, news, gaming, esports, corporate, government, and many, many more. Here's a very short list of some of our customers. And as you can see, we already have a few happy customers here in India. I hope that gave you a little idea of who we are. Let's get right to the good stuff. So for, excuse me. So for Broadcast India this year, we're very pleased to be announcing a whole slew of feature upgrades. Firstly, we are very proud to announce that we have received official Apple certification for our built-in ProRes transcoder. This is huge as it allows us to generate proxies and transcode ProRes files directly on the EVO without tying up your workstations. With the Apple certification, EVO can also generate edit-ready proxies in ProRes proxies or ProRes LT formats. Your editorial team will have better quality full raster proxy videos to work with now. With the ProRes edit-ready proxies in place, now you can download both the preview proxy, which is in H.264, or the edit proxy using the share browser web client. There are also permission control if you need to restrict access to who can download these files. We've added support for Wasabi, for Backblaze, and Google Cloud, on top of Amazon S3, Microsoft Azure, and Dropbox. Now you have more choices over the cloud storage provider you wish to use in your workflow. We have also upgraded our integration with Final Cut Pro 10. With the latest of Share Browser, once you import your video files into FCP's library, it will automatically start to download the edit-ready proxies from the remote EVO and link the proxies to the library. By configuring slingshot aliases, you can now quickly send files from one location to another just with a right click. You need to deliver the final exported file. Our checksum verification lets you ensure the copied file is bit for bit accurate using the MD5 checksum built in directly within the share browser. And finally, share browser bins, which are used by many customers for various applications. We have made it easier for you to mount all the different shares used by the files in the bin just by right-clicking on the share browser bin and mounting all the shares that are needed. So these are the new exciting announcements we're honored to announce at Broadcast India. Let's go into more details about how our suite of tools let you work remotely. So the first thing we need to do is to redefine our workflow. How do we do it? We redefine your workflow by providing the full suite of advanced software tools at no extra cost. That is our unique selling point. That's our USP. Here's a highlight of what is included with every EVO. Share Browser, it's a very easy to use media asset management software. It is designed to help you work, not add layers of complexity. Slingshot allows you to set up manual and schedule automation tasks. So repetitive file moving can be taken care of by EVO. So you keep creating, not copying. And Nomad is a desktop tool that helps you copy proxies or edit ready files to your desktop at home, so you can continue working even in these difficult times. And now that the pandemic has changed the way we work, we have created the possibility to extend your creative capability by taking on artists from all over the world, allowing them to contribute to your projects without the need to relocate them or expand your office. And you can do that without incurring additional costs because all our software tools are already included for free when you buy your EVO. Here's a selection of the most common tools and applications we support. Share Browser comes with extensions and plugins for Premiere, After Effects, Final Cut Pro, and DaVinci Resolve. So you can access your files directly within those applications. We support Avid file system, so you can continue to use the bin locking feature in Media Composer. Adobe Project Locking allows simple work group to collaborate, and we also support productions for Premiere. Other than hosting of the Resolve database on the EVO, you can now take advantage of our Share Browser plugin for Resolve, which allows you to search, organize, import your media without leaving DaVinci Resolve. And this is just a short list of supported applications. The way we architect our file and project locking mechanism allows you to configure and add new software easily when they become available. Let's go into a bit more details. Share Browser is designed so you can key in metadata quickly. We call these free-form metadata. Just type in simple keywords into the tag field and add some description into the comments field. That's it. You can also set up custom metadata field if your workflow requires them. All metadata are searchable, including harvested technical information. Share Browser can also be accessed using just a web browser, where you can watch previews and download edit-ready proxy video files when you need them. And if you have WAV or AIFF audio files, you can actually see the waveform for those files as well. Share Browser bins are virtual folders you create within Share Browser. One of its users is for your team to add shortcuts to files they have already located, so you don't have to look for them again. Files added to Share Browser bins are just aliases. They remain in the original folders. Share Browser also allows you to manage all your files and network storage, not just EVO, from one single application. And for those of you with a large backlog of video content, Share Browser works with Amazon's Recognition AI to quickly generate metadata to make your video library searchable. Unlike other solutions, this is a pay-as-you-use model, so there are no upfront costs to implement. Next, let's talk about Adobe. EVO's built-in project locking feature can be enabled for the entire Adobe suite of software. If you have multiple artists working on the same project, project locking helps to prevent multiple users from overwriting the same project file by accident. As mentioned earlier, we have an extension that you can install, and it gives you direct access to metadata and the actual files directly within Premiere and After Effects. So there's no need to switch around different windows. And when you're ready to move into complex team-based editing, you can sleep better at night knowing that your EVO has been tested and certified by Adobe to support productions for Premiere Pro. In fact, Adobe working closely with SNS because we have the largest test lab for productions before it was released. Final Cut shares many attributes with Premiere. Essentially, it's an editing software. So Share Browser works in very similar ways. In Final Cut, you can lock your library when sharing it over the network, so no one can move or delete your clips by accident. There's also a Share Browser extension that can install through the App Store. That lets you browse and import media and search metadata without leaving Final Cut's UI, very much like in Premiere and After Effects. And now with EVO's brand new capability to generate ProRes edit-ready proxies automatically, when you import your high-res media, the edit-ready proxies are automatically downloaded at the same time. You increase your team's efficiency when working remotely in Final Cut Pro. Our storage are also certified by Apple to work with Final Cut. In fact, Apple's internal QC departments, where they test third-party software like Adobe, like Avid's Media Composer, Resolve, and others, they are also using EVOs because it helps them speed up what they need to do. Next, Avid Media Composer and Pro Tools. Unlike other solutions on the market, our implementation of Avid's file system is done on the client side rather than the server side. This means a single share can be used by both media composers and other NLEs and application at the same time. You can finally stop making 2 copies of every file, one for Avid, one for After Effects, and effectively halving your actual storage capacity. Pro Tools was the first application we worked with. Remember the recording studio I mentioned earlier? We had to network up the Pro Tools in all the different recording and mixing rooms. So we've been on it for the last 22 years, working with Pro Tools. And Share Browser, as I've mentioned, have the ability to display actual waveforms of the audio files, so you can see all the sound effects and the music tracks, how they look like. With Resolve 16 and above, EVO can host the shared database, which allows multiple users to collaborate on the same project. One less server to buy, one less server to manage. And from Resolve 17 and above, our Share Browser plugin for DaVinci lets you organize tag files, add comments, search, preview, share bins, import your media and metadata without leaving your favorite NLE. We have also created a specialty system called EVO DPX. It is designed specifically to support multi-stream, high-resolution files used in color grading and VFX. In fact, if you have seen Resolve demos at trade shows like Broadcast India in the past, they are all powered by SNS EVOs. Slingshot is our built-in file automation tool. Slingshot comes with a GUI to help you build the automated workflow you require. Slingshot also allows you to build manual automation tasks. Like I've mentioned before, for example, once you've completed your work, Slingshot lets you build a right-click contextual menu item to send the file to another colleague or to another storage destination automatically. Now, that doesn't sound like much work, right? But think of how easy it is just to right-click and send the file off and continue creating. In a remote editing environment, you can also configure Slingshot to sync up files from the Office EVO to your home editing system. Download the edit-ready proxies when you start the project. And while you edit, the high-resolution files get synced across, so by the time you lock the cut, you are ready to relink the high-resolution files for color grading and final export. Slingshot supports practically all different types of third-party SMB storage available on the market. And there are no additional costs or capacity limit to manage those third-party storage. So all your current investment are well protected. But of course, we hope that once you go EVO, you won't go back. And for those of you who are technically adventurous, Slingshot includes a RESTful API that you can use Again, at no extra cost, so you can script your own custom workflow with your existing tool sets, and the sky is the limit here. Nomad was released last year, March, just before travel bans and stay-at-home orders were put into place. Now, what Nomad does is it lets you download, edit ready or preview proxies or the high-resolution files, depending on the type of work you need to do. And by leveraging on share browsers bins, you can download all the pre-selected file that you have chosen for the project that you're working on. This helps you get to work much faster instead of looking up those files again. Nomad takes advantage of the offline-online workflow that I'm sure we're all familiar with. In these difficult times, there are already enough stress, so we should not need to learn a new editing interface just to keep working. Once the files are safely on your home computer, there's no need to keep connecting to the Office EVO. We all know how unstable internet bandwidth can be when everybody is working from home. Nomad works on both Mac and Windows OS and supports all creative applications. Since last March, Nomad has been helping many customers like Grace Assembly of God Church, CBN Asia, Black Sheep Advertising in Australia, and the Australia Dental Association, and many, many more to work remotely. So whether you're working in a studio, at an office, or at home, EVO has the workflow tools to help you get back to work today. Now, I'd like to talk about another tool that makes this remote workflow even easier. SNS VPN is a cloud service that gives each customer your very own virtual private network. SNS VPN ties together one or multiple EVOs together with your production team wherever they are. It is easy to set up, easy to use, easy to manage, and like the rest of the SNS solutions, has no per seat pricing. SNS VPN can accommodate unlimited numbers of users. Now, your EVO will work properly with any properly configured VPN that you have already set up in your network. But they are not all created equal. We built SNS VPN with specific features to enhance the remote editing and creative processes, making it super easy to use, whether you have a dedicated IT department or zero technical and IT background whatsoever. SNS VPN service is fundamentally different from the standard hardwired VPN. And that makes the prospect of using this technology so much easier. In our case, each customer gets their own unique instance of the SNS VPN cloud service. Because the service is hosted in the cloud, there's no longer any requirement to buy and set up a dedicated server, and there's no need to program firewall rules. Once your EVO joins the SNS VPN cloud service, it is then available to any of your remote team members who also join the VPN. So the whole team, both in the office and in the field, have secure access to the workflow. The unique thing here is that your EVO joins the SNS VPN as a client, the same way that your remote users joins the VPN. This simplifies things and avoids so many problems of a traditional in-office hardware VPN. For example, a traditional VPN can expose all of your devices on your private network to those remote users. But SNS VPN is only connecting your EVO with your remote production team, leaving the rest of your office network isolated and secure. We have customers that tell us that their company already has a VPN, but it doesn't include their media server. So it doesn't really address their current remote editing requirement. One of the best things about SNS VPN is that it can live separately from the rest of your IT infrastructure. It doesn't conflict with any other VPN that might be running in your facility. The cloud-hosted service can be up and running in a matter of hours with the help of our remote commissioning service. And you can easily manage unlimited clients through the user-friendly web console without getting your IT people involved. If you need to add a freelancer for a week, you don't have to go through a ton of technical challenges. You can just add and revoke privileges very easily in the web portal. So with the EVO Nomad SNS VPN ecosystem, you have got all the pieces to the puzzle. EVO works in the background to create your edit-ready ProRes proxy files. Nomad extracts those files into a portable package, and SNS VPN delivers those files securely to your remote workstation for offline editing. Now let's hear what some of our customers have to say. If you can give me a second, I need to share sound and optimize the clip for the video. So we have two short video testimonies coming up. I hope the audio and the video is not too loud, and I'd apologize if they are. So let me introduce. The first one is Blend Studios, founded in 2003. Blend Studios is a full-service production studio in Springfield, Missouri, our home state in the US. Clients of Blend Studios includes Boulevard Brewing Company, Intel, Canon, 7-Eleven, and many more. And EVO helps Blend's editors, motion graphic designers, and producers stay organized and collaborate seamlessly around a secure, high-speed shared storage. Let's have a look.
My name is Brandon Goodwin, and I am the executive producer and a co-owner here at Blend Studio in Springfield, Missouri. Blend is a full-service video production company, so we work directly with agencies and nonprofits and companies to develop the creative for video projects, and then we also take them all the way through pre-production, into production, on set, whether that's in a studio or on location, and then we actually handle all of our own post-production in-house as well. We have an 8-bay EVO with 96 terabytes of storage. EVO has made us so much more efficient as a small video production company, and I really can't imagine our workflow without it. One person's able to transfer the raw footage, the next person's able to get started on the edit, and then as soon as the edit's ready, we can send it over to another workstation for graphics, and then another workstation for sending these videos to clients. And I think we really take for granted now how much more productive we are and how much safer our footage always is. Before EVO, we basically had all of these little portable hard drives, and we were constantly passing those back and forth, and it was a lot to manage. We don't have a dedicated network or IT person. It's just all of us producers figuring out all the tech as well. And EVO is easy enough to figure out, but if we ever need help, we just jump on the phone or an email with SNS, and they do a great job walking us through exactly how to take care of anything that we don't figure out on our own. A dedicated NAS of this size and quality seems like a really big investment, but it has exponentially made us more efficient and productive, and it's paid for itself several times over already.
Okay, the next video is from Andrew Pulaski, the owner of Abstract Pictures. Abstract Pictures is a Brooklyn, New York-based production company. Andrew and his team uses Share Browser to collaborate during content ingest, adding metadata, and shot selection. And the editorial team downloads content using Nomad to edit from home. Abstract Pictures create beautiful films, entertaining music videos, and compelling commercials for brands like New Balance, Johnnie Walker, Nespresso, and many more, all powered by EVO. Let's take a look.
Creativity is an enigma. It's not like there's a scientific or mathematical equation that defines your vision. Whether on or off set, there are a couple of ways I explore it, and collaboration has a huge role in putting the puzzle pieces together. We often look to technology for answers, but ultimately, disciplined workflow will let you create effectively and streamline team communication within the creative process. Being prepared for the unthinkable is a constant in filmmaking, and the last thing you need is to troubleshoot a technical roadblock in the midst of a creative breakthrough. Having a failsafe in times like these is crucial to keep on schedule. Centralizing your database for remote workflow without disruption is a must. Administering media asset management for multiple users is key, and that's where EVO comes in. Everything in our workflow starts and finishes with EVO. The power of search is a foundational attribute that has drawn us to exclusively work in Final Cut, and I think SNS shares that same DNA by creating a workflow extension that allows us to search, tag, and preview files that marry media and metadata for import right into Final Cut by automatically converting tags into keywords and comments into notes without ever leaving the NLE. SNS is always expanding and optimizing workflow integrations. PostLab has become a counterpart for our workflow by keeping a repository of tasks, versions, and library organization that lives in the cloud. For remote editors, SNS's Nomad deploys proxy assets generated by EVO to get other remote collaborators up and running quickly and efficiently. Frame.io's extension marries nicely into our workflow as well for review, approval, and delivery for our clients. We can synchronize multiple EVOs seamlessly, which allows us to perform beyond proxy editorial tasks from a remote location, like sharing original camera files for VFX or color correction. Time and time again, EVO's been there for us and our collaborators. I'm Andrew, and I'm a filmmaker based in New York.
Right, thank you, Andrew. Next, we have a quote from Borderless Film, based in South Korea. Now, Borderless Film is a South Korean-based production company that works with international brands, television network, and web platforms to create truly incredible, border-defying work. Borderless Film recently completed their most ambitious project yet, called K-pop Evolution, which explores the history and meteoric rise of the K-pop genre from the perspective of its stars. This YouTube original documentary series requires daily upload of between 700 gig to 1 terabyte of data to their partner company in Toronto. And Slingshot was able to automate the entire process and free up time so that the team can focus on the creative work. Nomad, Slingshot, SNS Cloud VPN allow Borderless Film to remain in full production regardless of the COVID-19 situation around the world. So to bring everything back together, EVO is much more than just shared storage. It is the ultimate shared storage workflow solution for post-production, for broadcast, VFX teams, and anyone who needs to create content. You always get high-performance shared storage with EVO, plus powerful and easy-to-use media asset management with Share Browser, robust file automation and API integration with Slingshot, and of course, our remote editing utility, Nomad. All of these tools are included free with unlimited license for all new EVOs. Our products are scalable to accommodate your storage and workflow needs, from the smallest EVO Prodigy desktop unit to multiple 16-bay EVOs and EVO nearline units with petabyte expandability. To arrange for a demo and a discussion about your workflow and environment, please feel free to contact Sham or myself. Again, thank you all for your time, and let's open the floor to Q&A. I'm going to pop back to the last slide in case anybody wants to jot down our contact information.
Thank you so much, James. Like you said, let's just go straight ahead and get some questions from our attendees. I would like to introduce Manoj Madhavan, who's the editor of Broadcast and Film magazine, which is the official online publication for the Broadcast India show. He'll be moderating the Q&A section for us today. Manoj, over to you.
Thank you, James, for a very interesting session.
Thank you.
Production indeed made easy for the creative teams.
We hope so.
Coming back to the questions, James, one interesting question: is it possible to watermark proxies automatically?
Not at the moment, but we are working on that feature. So it's something that we're working on. Please get in touch with us if there is something that you need right away. What we do find is most of our clients are happy to just use the standard proxy that's generated. We do encounter customers that have asked for watermarking just for security reason, and because of that, we are working on that.
We're coming to the other question. Can we select what ProRes format to use for edit-ready proxy files?
Oh, yes, of course. So our ProRes transcoder allows us to create presets that transcodes all flavors of ProRes. That said, obviously, if you're doing a proxy edit, ProRes proxy or ProRes LT, it's probably the most you want to go to. That said, the transcoder can be, we can create different presets to do a final transcode if that is what is required. So we can have multiple profiles running across multiple transcode workflow.
How fast is Nomad? Can I edit online using Nomad?
That's a great question, and we have had a lot of people ask that. So I just want to make things very clear. Nomad isn't a online editing tool that other partners or other vendors have been talking about. So our route with remote workflow is inherently different from trying to push everybody to work on a web browser, right? Because the thing we find is with a web browser, there's a lot of proprietary systems to make it work. And if you don't use proprietary system, it actually doesn't really work very well. So with Nomad, Nomad is just a tool that talks to the EVO in the office that allows you to download the files to your computer. So we're not actually editing online. We go through your home internet connection, of course, over the secure SNS VPN connection to your EVO to download those files so you can work with the files that is on the computer at home. And because of that, there's no need to worry about how fast your internet connection is. You can be doing that download overnight while you're sleeping. When you wake up, you get ready to work. You don't have to worry that your kids are doing homeschool learning, your missus also has Zoom calls and the whole bunch of things. You're not using your internet connection after you have downloaded the files.
An interesting observation, James, you mentioned your background as a sound engineer.
Sure.
Now, what I understand during the course of the pandemic, a lot of remote production work has been happening, whether it's been web series or film work. Mm-hmm. What I understand from some of the experts, that sound has often been a compromise as far as remote production goes. What is your view as a sound engineer in this particular regard?
I think, to be fair, sound has always been the unwanted stepchild in any film and video production for most cases. Just because you can't see them, you only hear them. But I think that said, within the pandemic environment, a lot of times you might not go with a full crew, so you might actually skip your sound recordings on location. And if the cameraman is not, or if you don't have the tools and the knowledge to record proper sound, that always hurts you down the road because it's much harder to fix a bad sound once it's recorded. But assuming it's all done, the tool sets that we have actually allows the user to be able to pick and choose the right file if they have multiple takes for a particular sound, just simply by being able to visualize the tracks. If you start to see noise and ticks and all that coming up, you don't have to spend time auditioning, listening to the track. You can just, jump right to where a tick is on the waveform to see what the problem is for you to pick out the best tick possible.
Interesting. We have another question from Mr. Tawfiq. Is MXF workflow with EDS possible with EVO?
Oh, yes, absolutely. We have had customers in Taiwan that is basically doing that.
Oh, interesting. Are there different software packages for different size EVOs?
Say again, sorry, I didn't catch that.
Are there different software packages for different size EVOs?
Got it. No, all our software, everything that I've mentioned are included from the smallest EVO to the largest EVO. So we don't we don't try and shortchange the customer. Just because you buy a smaller EVO, you get less software, or we lock you down with the number of licenses. No, we are equal. Everybody is treated the same as well. So everybody gets all the software without licensing costs for free for unlimited users.
One company already has a VPN. Can they use VPN with EVO?
Oh, yes. As we have mentioned in the slides, the VPN, if your company has already configured the VPN, the EVO could be part of that VPN, and your users can log in and work on it. There'll be ports that needs to be open, and we will work with you to make sure that the right ports are open for the proper connectivity to go through. You can. That said, I think the biggest question is, should you? Because one thing that we do encounter a lot for customers that have an existing VPN is it is actually provisioned for Office type data. So it might be email, it might be downloading Word documents, they are small files. So a lot of times we discover that, or the customer discover after a couple of months, that when they start to download video files, even proxy video files, they basically kill everybody off their VPN. So that's also one of the reasons why we build our own, to help customers get to the media, to build a media VPN so that it can be isolated from the Office traffic. But short answer is yes, if you have an Office VPN, you can always configure the EVO to be part of that infrastructure so everybody can access to it.
A last question, James, is the proxy transcoder only used for proxy? Is the ProRes transcoder only used for proxy?
No, so as I've mentioned earlier, the ProRes transcoder can be used to transcode a final output if you need to. For what it's worth, we have other transcode code. We have other codecs available in our transcoder as well. So we could be transcoding to MPEG if that's what is needed, or H.264 if you need to do a web-based version of your file. ProRes is just the latest one that we have that has Apple certification. So we're very happy to announce it here, and we can transcode all the ProRes flavors depending on what is needed by the end user for delivery, or for a client preview, or for whatever reason you need to transcode a file.
Thank you. Thank you very much, James, for that.
It's my pleasure.
Interactive session. And we come to the end of the session. Over to you, Pranali.
Yes, thank you, sure, James and Manoj. It's been a very insightful session, and I'm sure our audiences have taken away a lot from this.